For today's lesson, we're going to have an introduction to lesson 4-5, and we're going to review GCF. Make sure on your paper that you place your name, your class period, and today's date. Our essential question in this lesson asks, what is GCF and how do I find it for a set of numbers? The first question that we need to ask is, what is GCF? Well, GCF means greatest common factor. It's the largest value that is a factor of two or more terms. What you've done with greatest common factor in the past has only been with constant terms or number terms. So we're going to look at what that means first. Next, we ask, how can I find the GCF for two or more terms? The way we do that is we first look for all the factors of each number. We can also look for all the factors of each term. Then, choose the largest factor that is common to all terms. Now let's look at an example of how that looks. Now let's look at an example. Question 3. What is the GCF of 10 and 15? So the first thing that we're going to do is look for all the factors of the number 10 and then all the factors of the number 15. Then we'll compare those two lists. So the factors of 10 are all the numbers that will make 10 by multiplication, like 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. All the factors of 15 are the multiplication problems that make 15 using whole numbers. 1 and 15 and 3 times 5. Now when I look at these two lists, I need to pick out the number that is the largest factor that is common to both of them. So what I see first here is that they both have a 1 and they both have a 5. So those are the common factors, but the greatest common factor is the 5. So the greatest common factor of 10 and 15 is 5. Let's try a second example. What is the GCF of 12 and 36? So we'll start by listing all the factors of 12. So think about all the multiplication problems that you can do that make 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Now we're going to do the same thing for 36. 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. Now we're going to underline all the factors they have in common. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. What's the biggest number that they have in common? The biggest number is 12. So the greatest common factor for 12 and 36 is 12. In elementary school, you may have seen these as factor rainbows. So I'm just going to show you what it may have looked like when you were in elementary school. So as we pair these things up, these numbers up, okay, starting with 12, you're looking for what are all the ways to make 12. So the 1 and the 12 go together, the 2 and the 6 go together, and then the 3 and the 4 go together. So you'll notice that they connected these, or a lot of teachers taught it this way, where you connect the two numbers together that go together to make that value. Okay, that's what a factor rainbow would look like. So you can tell it looks kind of like a rainbow where you are arching or connecting together the factors that make that product. Now flip your paper over and go to the back. On the back side, we're going to do some more practice with finding the GCF of some basic number terms. But this time we're going to do it using 3 numbers instead of 2, so that we can see what happens when we have more than 2 terms and we're looking for their largest common factor. The next question asks, what is the GCF of 6, 9, and 24? So we'll begin this one the same way we did on the front side. Let's find all the factors for 6. 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Then we're going to find the factors of 9. 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. Since we have a factor that is used twice, we only need to show it once in our list. And then the factors of 24. We have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. So 24 has a lot of factors. Now we're going to go through these lists and we're going to underline the ones that they have in common. They all have a 1. They all have a 3. But you might notice that 2 of the lists have a 2, but the third list does not. And 2 of the lists have a 6, but the other list does not. So we can't count those as common factors because it needs to show up in all 3 places. In this case, the GCF for 6, 9, and 24 is the largest number that is common to all 3 lists, and that number is 3. So even if you have a factor that is in 2 of the 3 lists, it's not a common factor for all 3 terms. So we need to only look for the terms that have the same factors for everything that is listed. Now let's try this question. Number 6. What is the GCF of 30, 54, and 66? So again, we're looking for all the factors of each number, and then we're going to pick the common factors and look for the greatest common factor. So try to find the factors of 30, 54, and 66, and then come back and check your work. Then we'll go on to identifying common factors and the greatest common factor. The factors are 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. Now find the factors of 54. The factors of 54 are 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 18, 27, and 54. Now find the factors of 66. The factors of 66 are 1, 2, 3, 6, 11, 22, 33, and 66. Now let's identify all the factors they have in common. They all have 1, 2, 3, 6. Anything else? I don't see anything else either, which means the last number that I underlined in each list is their greatest common factor, which in this problem is 6. Now I'm going to give you some problems to try on your own. Find the greatest common factor, and when you're done, check your answers one at a time before you move on to the next part. Try each of these next 2 examples. Find the GCF for the numbers 30 and 4, and then find the GCF of 12, 15, and 18. Do one problem at a time. When you're done with that question, check your answer before moving on to the next question. Pause the video while you're working so that you have ample time to answer each question. Here are the factors for the numbers 30 and 4. The greatest number that is common to both 30 and 4 is 2. Now try the next question. The greatest common factor for 12, 15, and 18 is 3. While there may be some other factors that they do have in common, or maybe in common to two of the three numbers in the list, it must be a common factor for all three values in order for it to be a greatest common factor for that set. So make sure that when you have more than two numbers, that you find all the factors of each number, and it has to be a common factor in all three places. To summarize, finding the GCF means, number 1, list all factors for each term. Number 2, identify the largest factor that is listed and is the same for all terms. And number 3, the largest factor that appears in all lists is the GCF, the greatest common factor.